Give me a heart attack! Shock CPR!
Shut up. Always your kind committing these crimes.
She is in cardiac arrest. Someone do compressions.
Yeah, right. A doctor. Sure he is.
You're going to jail for a long time.
Oh my God.
It's a Saturday morning. The kind of morning that makes you feel like everything in the world is exactly as it should be. The sun is warm but not too hot. The air smells like fresh-cut grass. Families are walking dogs. Kids are playing. People are sitting on benches, scrolling through their phones. And somewhere on a winding trail through Riverside Park, a doctor is jogging. He's not thinking about emergencies. He's not thinking about hospitals or heart rates or CPR protocols. He's just running. Music in his ears. The rhythm of his feet on the pavement. A man taking a rare, quiet moment for himself. His name is Dr. Adrian Foster. He is 38 years old. A board-certified emergency room physician with 10 years of experience. A man who has saved more lives than most of us will ever know. A man who, on this particular Saturday morning, was about to save one more. And be punished for it. What happened next, in the span of just a few minutes, would shake a city, end a police career, trigger a $1.1 million lawsuit, and become one of the most devastating examples of racial bias ever caught on camera. This is the story of what happens when a black man tries to save a white woman's life in a public park, and the world decides he must be doing something wrong. Stay with me. Because every detail of this story matters. Before we go any further, drop in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing where you're tuning in from all over the world. And if you believe that a man saving a life should never end in handcuffs, hit that like button right now. Let's get into it. To understand what happened that day, you have to understand the world Dr. Adrian Foster moved through every single day of his professional life. He had chosen emergency medicine. Not because it was glamorous, because it is the furthest thing from glamorous. Emergency medicine is chaos. It is blood and screaming and split-second decisions made with incomplete information, surrounded by people in the worst moments of their lives. It requires a particular kind of person. Someone who doesn't freeze. Someone whose brain, when everyone else's is shutting down with panic, speeds up. Focuses. Calculates. Acts. That was Adrian Foster. For 10 years, he had worked at City General Hospital. He had seen cardiac arrests, strokes, overdoses, traumatic injuries, cases that most people will never encounter outside of a television drama. He had performed CPR dozens of times. Not in a training room. Not on a mannequin. On real human beings whose hearts had stopped beating, and who would be dead right now if Adrian Foster had not been in the room. He had trained other doctors. Mentored nurses. Supervised residents. He was not someone who panicked in a crisis. He was the person the crisis called. And on a Saturday morning in late May, he laced up his well-worn running shoes, shoes that had logged hundreds of miles on this very trail, put his headphones in, and started running. The outer loop of Riverside Park was 3 miles long. Adrian had been running it for years. He knew every curve, every slight incline, every stretch where the tree cover blocked the morning sun. He was 25 minutes in. Coming up on the 2-mile mark. His breathing was controlled, and even. His stride was smooth. He was thinking about nothing in particular, just the music and the movement, and the rare luxury of an uninterrupted morning. And then, about 20 feet ahead of him, everything changed. A woman. White, mid-30s, bright blue running gear, blonde ponytail swinging with each stride. Adrian had passed her earlier, going the opposite direction. She was a little slower than him. He was getting ready to pass her again when her stride faltered. It happened in an instant. One moment she was running. The next moment, her legs buckled. Her body crumpled forward. She hit the pavement hard, no hands out to catch herself, no attempt to break the fall, just a complete, total collapse. The kind of fall you only see when the person is already unconscious before they hit the ground. Adrian's headphones were out before he'd even made the conscious decision to pull them. He was sprinting those 20 feet before his brain had finished processing what his eyes had seen. His training, years of it, thousands of hours of it, kicked in like a reflex. He dropped to his knees beside her. The woman was lying face down. Completely still. No movement. No sound. Adrian rolled her onto her back, the motion practiced, efficient, the exact movement he had performed in emergency rooms more times than he could count. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" His voice was loud and clear. The voice of a man who has had to cut through chaos and fear and ambient hospital noise to make himself understood. The kind of voice that commands attention even when the room is falling apart. No response. 2 fingers to her neck. Checking for a pulse. His eyes were already moving, scanning her face, her chest, looking for any sign of breathing. Nothing. No pulse. No breath. No movement. Her chest was completely still. And in that moment, with the park trail busy with joggers and the morning sun warm on his back, Dr. Adrian Foster knew exactly what was happening and exactly what he had to do. Cardiac arrest. He positioned himself. Both hands, one on top of the other, placed directly on the center of her chest. He leaned forward. And he began. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. His compressions were deep. Hard. Rhythmic. Every single one delivered with the force required to manually pump blood through a heart that had stopped pumping on its own. His arms burned. His back strained. He did not slow down. The rule in cardiac arrest is brutal and simple. Every second that passes without CPR, brain cells are dying. Every minute without intervention, the chance of survival drops by 10%. The brain can survive for roughly 4 to 6 minutes without oxygen before irreversible damage begins. Adrian knew all of this. Not theoretically. Not from a textbook. He knew it the way a surgeon knows how to make an incision. It was coded into his muscle memory, his instincts, the very way he moved through the world. After 30 compressions, he tilted her head back, lifted her chin, pinched her nose, and gave 2 rescue breaths, pressing his mouth to a stranger's and breathing for her, willing oxygen into lungs that had stopped working. Then back to compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Other joggers had stopped. A small crowd was gathering at a respectful distance, the way people do when they sense something serious is happening but aren't sure what to do. Adrian looked up without breaking his rhythm. "Someone call 911. Tell them we have a woman in cardiac arrest at Riverside Park, the main trail." Now. A man about 10 feet away was already pulling out his phone. Adrian went back to compressions. His shirt was soaked through with sweat now, not from the run, but from the physical exertion of keeping someone alive with nothing but his hands and his training. His arms were burning. His shoulders ached. He did not stop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He was so focused, so completely locked into the rhythm of what he was doing, that he didn't notice the woman on the bench 50 yards away. He didn't see her stand up. He didn't see her grab her phone. He didn't hear what she said when someone answered. And that is the moment this story takes its darkest turn. Karen Whitmore was 52 years old. She had been sitting on that bench for the past 20 minutes, scrolling through her phone, occasionally looking up to watch people pass on the trail. She wasn't anxious. She wasn't frightened. She was just a woman sitting in a park on a Saturday morning. And then she looked up and saw a black man kneeling over a white woman who wasn't moving. I want you to think about this moment very carefully. Because this is where the entire tragedy begins. Karen Whitmore did not approach. She did not call out to ask if everything was okay. She did not look for the signs that were right there in plain sight, the careful, deliberate positioning of the hands, the deep rhythmic compressions, the tilt of the head for rescue breaths. Signs that any person who has taken a CPR class would have recognized immediately. She did not process what she was actually seeing. What her brain did, in that fraction of a second, was something far more dangerous. It filled in the blanks. It looked at a black man on top of a white woman who was not moving, and it reached for the nearest available explanation. Not the most likely explanation. Not the most logical one. The one that bias and fear and a lifetime of absorbed stereotypes had made the most accessible. And she dialed 911. Phone dialing. Dispatcher picks up. 911, what's your emergency? There's a black man attacking a woman in Riverside Park. He's on top of her. She's not moving. You need to send someone right now. The dispatcher stayed calm. Professional. Ma'am, what is the man doing? Is he hitting her? I don't know. He's just on top of her. She's not moving. Please hurry. At no point in that call did Karen Whitmore say he might be helping her. At no point did she describe chest compressions. At no point did she say, wait, let me look more carefully. Let me walk closer. Let me ask what's happening. She called it an attack. She used the word attacking. And she stayed on the line, watching from 50 yards away, while the officers were already on their way. The call was logged at 10:47 a.m. Clock ticking. Slow. Deliberate. And about 4 minutes later, 4 minutes during which Adrian Foster had not stopped performing CPR for a single second, 2 officers arrived at Riverside Park. Distant sirens growing louder. Officer Greg Lawson, 36 years old. 11 years on the force. Officer Daniel Cruz, 28 years old. 5 years of experience. They had received the dispatch: black male suspect on top of a white female victim. Assault in progress. Riverside Park, main trail. They pulled in with lights flashing. And from the moment the car stopped, the narrative was already written in their minds. They were not arriving at a medical emergency. They were arriving at a crime scene. They were not looking for someone who needed help. They were looking for a suspect who needed to be stopped. Here is what they saw when they approached. A man kneeling over a woman. His hands on her chest. Moving up and down. Hard. Fast. Rhythmic. The man was counting out loud. The woman was not fighting him. The woman was not struggling. The woman was not making any sound at all. What Officers Lawson and Cruz saw, if they had looked at it for even 3 seconds with neutral eyes, was textbook CPR. But they didn't look with neutral eyes. They looked with eyes already filtered through a dispatch call that said attack. That said black male. That said she's not moving. And they didn't stop to assess. They didn't slow down to observe. They didn't call out to ask what was happening. They just moved. Lawson raised his pepper spray. Cruz's hand went to his service weapon. Neither of them said a word. Adrian was mid-compression, hands on her chest, leaning forward, counting out loud, when the spray hit him directly in the face from less than 3 feet away. The pain was immediate and total. Pepper spray on the face is not discomfort. It is a chemical assault on every nerve ending simultaneously, burning, blindness, complete sensory overwhelm. Adrian's hands flew to his face. He screamed. He fell backward, off the woman, onto the pavement. And the woman lay there. Alone. With no one performing CPR. Cruz was already moving. He grabbed Adrian by the arms and slammed him face down onto the ground. Adrian was trying to speak through the pain. His voice was breaking apart. But he was still, trying to make them understand. She's having a heart attack. She needs CPR. I'm a doctor. Lawson's voice came from above him. Cold. Dismissive. Certain. Shut up. It's always your kind committing these crimes. Your kind. Those 2 words. Spoken by a uniformed officer. Captured on his own body camera. About a man performing CPR. Adrian tried again. Because a woman was dying a few feet away from him, and he was the only person on that trail who fully understood what that meant. I'm a doctor. She's in cardiac arrest. Someone needs to do CPR. Cruz laughed. The sound of it, preserved forever on bodycam audio, is described by everyone who has heard it as one of the most chilling things they have ever listened to. Yeah, right. A doctor. Sure you are. Lawson snapped handcuffs onto Adrian's wrists. Tight enough to leave deep bruises that would still be visible days later. Then he leaned down close to Adrienne's ear. "You're going to jail for a long time." And Adrienne lay face down on the hot pavement. Eyes burning. Wrists locked in metal. The woman he had been trying to save lying motionless on the ground a few feet away. No one performing CPR. The seconds passing. The brain cells dying. 30 seconds. That is how long it was between the moment Adrienne was handcuffed and the moment the ambulance pulled up to the scene. 30 seconds during which no one was performing CPR. During which a woman who had already been without a functioning heartbeat for several minutes lay completely unattended. In the world of cardiac arrest, 30 seconds is not a small number. Jason Rivera had worked emergency medicine for 15 years. Lead paramedic. And when he jumped out and ran toward the crowd on the trail, the first thing he saw was a woman lying on her back on the pavement with nobody doing CPR on her. He dropped to his knees. Checked for a pulse. It was there, but barely. Weak. Unstable. Thread thin. He started compressions immediately. Looked at his partner. "Get the AED ready." Then he looked around at the witnesses. "Who was doing CPR on her before we got here?" Multiple people pointed. They pointed at the man lying face down on the pavement in handcuffs, 20 feet away, with 2 police officers standing over him. Jason Rivera looked at Adrienne. Then at the officers. Then back at Adrienne. And his expression shifted, from confusion to something much harder. He walked to Lawson. "Why did you stop him?" "She's in cardiac arrest. Every second without CPR reduces her chance of survival." Lawson was defensive. "We got a call about an assault. He was on top of her. We had to secure the suspect." "An assault?" Jason's voice was flat as stone. "He was doing CPR. She collapsed. She wasn't breathing on her own. He was saving her life." Cruz stepped forward, still dismissive. "We were responding to a 911 call. The caller said he was attacking her." And from the ground, his voice hoarse and strained from the pepper spray, his face still burning, his wrists still locked in cuffs, Adrienne spoke. "I'm Dr. Adrienne Foster. I'm an emergency room physician at City General Hospital. I saw her collapse. She had no pulse. I started CPR immediately. She is in cardiac arrest. Please, someone needs to do compressions." Jason looked at him. And recognition moved across his face. "Dr. Foster, I've worked with you. You've been at City General for years." He turned back to Lawson. And his voice got harder than it had been a moment before. "You just pepper sprayed and arrested a doctor who was performing CPR. Do you understand what you have done?" Lawson didn't answer. His face had gone pale. Beeping of the AED, mechanical, clinical, urgent. Jason's partner had the defibrillator pads on the woman's chest. The machine was analyzing her heart rhythm. The automated voice came through clearly. "Shock advised. Stand clear." Everyone stepped back. The shock delivered. Her body jerked. The machine analyzed again. "Shock advised. Stand clear." A second shock. And then, this time, the machine gave a different message. "No shock advised. Check pulse." Jason checked. The pulse was there. Stronger. More regular. He looked at Adrienne, still on the ground, still in handcuffs, still in pain, and he said the words clearly. Deliberately. So that everyone standing around that trail could hear every single word. Her heart's back in rhythm. "You saved her life, doctor. If you hadn't started CPR when you did, she would be dead right now." The witnesses started speaking all at once. Their voices overlapping, urgent, impossible to ignore. "She collapsed right in front of him. He didn't attack her. We saw the whole thing. He was doing CPR. He was counting compressions out loud. He told someone to call 911. He was trying to save her. The officers came up and sprayed him without asking a single question." And then, from the back of the crowd, an older man raised his phone. "I recorded it. I've got video of him doing CPR. And I've got video of the officers spraying him." Cruz looked at that phone. And he understood, immediately and completely, exactly how bad this was about to get. Jason Rivera looked at Lawson one more time. Uncuff him. Right now. Lawson hesitated. I said uncuff him? He is a doctor. He just saved this woman's life. And you assaulted him for it. The handcuffs came off. Adrian brought his arms forward slowly. His wrists were red, bruised, marked deep by the metal. Jason helped him sit up and immediately began flushing his eyes with water. Adrian blinked through the burning. His voice was raw and quiet. How is she? She's stable. Her heart restarted. We're transporting her to City General. A pause. You did everything right, doctor. You gave her the best chance she had. Adrian nodded. Then he looked at Lawson. Then at Cruz. And when he spoke, his voice was not raised. It did not need to be. I want your names and badge numbers. Both of you. I'm calling my attorney. I'm requesting the 911 recording. I'm requesting all body cam footage from both of you. And I am filing a federal lawsuit for assault, excessive force, and violation of my civil rights. Lawson opened his mouth. Adrian cut him off. I took an oath to save lives. Today, I did exactly that. And your response was to pepper spray me, tackle me, handcuff me, and tell me I was going to jail for a long time. All because you saw a black man, and could not imagine any other possibility. He looked at Cruz. And when I told you I was a doctor, you laughed at me. Like that was impossible. Like a black man couldn't possibly be a physician. Cruz had no answer. 3 hours later, Dr. Adrian Foster sat in the emergency room at City General Hospital, the same hospital where he had worked for a decade, while a nurse treated the chemical burns in his eyes and shook her head in disbelief as he told her what had happened. His eyes were still red and swollen. His wrists carried deep purple bruises where the handcuffs had bitten into his skin. The physical pain would fade. But there was something heavier than pain sitting in that room with him. The knowledge. The absolute, undeniable knowledge that if he had been a white man performing CPR, none of this would have happened. A white man performing CPR would not have triggered that 911 call. A white man performing CPR would not have been pepper sprayed mid-compression. A white man performing CPR would not have been handcuffed and told he was going to jail. A white man saving a life would have been thanked. 2 floors above him, Sarah Mitchell was recovering. The cardiologist had confirmed what Adrian already knew. She had suffered a sudden cardiac event caused by an undiagnosed heart condition. Without immediate CPR, she would have died on that trail. Her brain function was intact. Her heart was stable. She was going to make a full recovery. The cardiologist came down to the ER specifically to find Adrian and look him in the eye. You saved her life, Dr. Foster. The paramedics told me you started compressions within seconds of her collapse. That is the only reason she is alive today. Her brain is undamaged. Her heart is recovering. She is going to walk out of this hospital, because of you. Adrian nodded. He heard the words. But they sat strangely alongside the memory of lying face down on hot pavement with handcuffs on his wrists, and chemical fire in his eyes while the woman he was trying to save lay alone with no one helping her. His attorney, Marcus Reed, arrived within the hour. Marcus was a civil rights attorney with 20 years of experience handling police misconduct cases. And when Adrian finished describing every detail of what had happened, Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't look surprised. He looked focused. Tell me everything, Marcus said. Leave nothing out. And Adrian did. The evidence, when it was compiled, was devastating. First, the 911 call. Karen Whitmore's voice. Panicked. Frantic. Describing a black man attacking a white woman in the park. The dispatcher asked if the man was hitting the woman. Karen said she didn't know, but that he was on top of her and she wasn't moving. Not once, not a single time, did she mention the possibility that he might be helping. Not once did she describe what CPR actually looks like. She saw what her bias told her to see. And she called it in as a violent crime. Second, the body cam footage. This is the piece of evidence that would become the most watched, the most shared, the most studied. What it showed left no room for interpretation. You could see Adrian performing chest compressions. Clearly. Unmistakably. Before the officers even got out of the car. You could see both officers approach without attempting to assess the situation for even a single second. You could see Lawson raise the pepper spray. And you could hear, in Lawson's own voice, the words that would end his career. "Shut up. It's always your kind committing these crimes." You could hear Cruz. "Yeah, right. A doctor. Sure you are." You could hear Lawson, moments before the paramedics arrived. "You're going to jail for a long time." Marcus played the footage twice. The second time, Adrian watched it with his hands flat on the table, completely still. The way a person holds themselves still when they are trying very hard not to let the emotion surface in front of other people. Third, the witnesses. Multiple people on that trail provided written statements confirming every detail. Sarah Mitchell collapsed. Adrian began CPR immediately. The officers used force without asking a single question or observing the scene for even a moment. And the older man with the phone provided video footage of Adrian performing textbook CPR. Hands positioned correctly, compressions deep and rhythmic, counting out loud, before the officers arrived. Marcus compiled everything. Then he looked at Adrian across the desk. "This is one of the clearest cases of racial profiling and excessive force I have ever seen in 20 years of doing this work. We are filing a federal lawsuit. Excessive force. Assault. Violation of civil rights. Racial discrimination. And we are seeking $1.1 million in damages." Adrian didn't hesitate. "Do it." The lawsuit was filed 2 weeks after the incident. The story broke in local news within hours. The headlines were brutal. And every single one of them was accurate. Doctor pepper sprayed while performing CPR. Officers arrest physician saving woman's life. Racist remarks captured on body cam during medical emergency. The city released a statement. They were investigating. They took all allegations seriously. The statement did nothing. The footage was already everywhere. The words, "It's always your kind committing these crimes," were already being played on every news station in the city. And then Sarah Mitchell woke up. 3 days after the cardiac arrest, her doctor sat down with her and explained what had happened. That a stranger had seen her collapse on a trail and performed CPR to keep her alive. That police had arrived and arrested him for doing so. She was horrified. She asked to meet him. Sarah walked into Adrienne's office with tears already streaming down her face. She was 34 years old. A marketing executive. No history of heart problems. She had no memory of collapsing, no memory of the trail. No memory of anything until she woke up in a hospital room 2 floors above the man who had kept her alive. "Dr. Foster, I don't know how to begin to thank you. The cardiologist told me that without CPR, I would have died. My brain would have been damaged even if my heart had eventually restarted. You saved my life." Adrian stood and shook her hand. "I'm glad you're okay. That's what matters." "But they arrested you," Sarah said. Her voice broke on the word. "They pepper sprayed you while you were trying to save me. I can't believe that happened." "It happened," Adrian said quietly, "because they saw a black man and assumed the worst. They didn't see a doctor. They didn't see CPR. They just saw my skin color and decided I was a criminal." Sarah looked at him. And she made him a promise. "I'm testifying on your behalf. Whatever you need. I will tell everyone what you did for me. I will make sure the world knows you are a hero." And she kept that promise. She gave interviews to every news station that called. She wrote an op-ed for the city newspaper. She appeared at a press conference beside Adrian and his attorney, and she looked directly into the cameras and said, "This man saved my life. And he was treated like a criminal for doing so." The pressure on the police department became unbearable. Lawson was placed on administrative leave. The body cam footage was released publicly. And a story that had begun with a man performing CPR in a park had become a national conversation about the true cost of racial bias, not just in dignity, not just in money, but in human lives. The internal investigation moved quickly, because the evidence gave them no choice. Officer Greg Lawson, terminated. 4 weeks after the incident. 11 years of service ended. The official findings were unambiguous. Excessive force without situational assessment, pepper spray deployed against a civilian performing life-saving medical care, explicitly racist statements captured on his own body camera, multiple violations of department policy on use of force and professional conduct. His law enforcement career was over. His name became permanently attached to one of the most widely condemned examples of racially biased policing ever recorded. Officer Daniel Cruz, 60 days suspended without pay. 1 year probation. He had not deployed the spray, but he had tackled, he had mocked, he had participated in every moment that followed. The department found that his failure to assess and his demonstrated bias violated department standards. Karen Whitmore, no criminal charges, because calling 911 in what a caller believes is good faith is legally protected, even when that belief is rooted in racial bias. But once her identity became known through the lawsuit discovery process, her employer terminated her. Her name became synonymous with what it costs other people when racial assumptions go unchallenged. The city settled the federal lawsuit in 7 months. $1.1 million. And along with the money, mandatory reform. New training on recognizing medical emergencies. Protocols requiring officers to assess situations before using force. An independent review board for all use of force incidents involving racial bias allegations. Quarterly audits of body cam footage to identify patterns of discriminatory behavior. Dr. Adrian Foster used a portion of the settlement to establish a scholarship fund for minority students pursuing careers in emergency medicine. He kept working at City General. And he became a voice, steady and persistent and impossible to ignore, in conversations about racial bias in policing and public safety. 5 years later, the reforms remain in place. The Independent Review Board has investigated dozens of use of force incidents and forced accountability in cases that previously would have been quietly dismissed. The body cam footage of Adrian being pepper sprayed while performing CPR is now shown in police academies, medical schools, and civil rights workshops across the country. It has become one of the clearest demonstrations that exist of what racial bias looks like when it overrides reason, and what it costs when it does. Sarah Mitchell made a full recovery. She advocates alongside Adrian to this day. She has said publicly that his story didn't just save her life, it opened her eyes to a reality she had never had to confront before. A reality that Black people navigate every single day. Greg Lawson has not worked in law enforcement since his termination. He works in warehouse logistics. Daniel Cruz completed his probation. He remains on the force. He has not been promoted. And Dr. Adrian Foster never received an apology from the men who put him on that pavement. But he received something else. He received justice. He received reform. He received a $1.1 million message, delivered from a city to its officers, and to the country, that racial bias has consequences. That those consequences are severe. And that they are permanent. Performing CPR while Black should not result in assault and arrest. A 911 call made through the lens of racial bias can trigger a police response that treats a hero as a criminal. And officers who do not assess before they act will face consequences that cannot be undone. Dr. Adrian Foster saved a life that Saturday morning. That is the fact this story begins with. And it is the fact this story ends with. He saved a life. And that should have been enough. If this story moved you, if it made you angry, if it made you grieve, if it reminded you that heroism doesn't come in one color, and that assumptions can literally stop someone from saving a life, share it. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Share it with someone who has never had to think about what it means to be seen as a threat while doing something good. What kind of training do you think police departments need to make sure racial bias never again overrides a situation assessment in a medical emergency? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you believe that a man saving a life should never, under any circumstances, end in handcuffs, subscribe. We are not stopping until every person can help another human being without fearing what the world will assume about them.